And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Sunday evening. Waited until the Sunday night game was finally over. And what a great pitching performance by Tarek Skubal, absolutely dominating the Texas Rangers. Not exactly the greatest offensive team, but looked like they were starting to figure things out before the break. They got to go back to the drawing board after 3 games against the Tigers. Their offense not really able to muster much of anything in any of those 3 games. Now, of course, you could chalk it up to the All-Star break and a little bit of rust coming out of the break, and I'm sure part of it is that. But this Rangers offense still needs some more improvement before the deadline. They figure to be one of the more active teams at the deadline, especially for an elite guy at the back end of the bullpen, probably a closer. We've talked a lot about Bednar. We've talked a lot about Duran. Bautista is another name that doesn't get as much mention anyway as far as a Rangers option at the back end of their bullpen, but that would be another one. Tigers absolutely need to get another veteran in that clubhouse. For me, this offense is too hit or miss for me. There's too many platoons here. I get they're trying to play it every day like it's a Game 7. It's their philosophy there in Detroit. But what about a guy that's immune to the platoon? Somebody who's good versus righties and lefties. Now, understandably, the prices are going to be extremely high since buyers are so many more buyers this year than there are sellers. And there's not a lot of talent out there as far as offensive pieces. But if you can get a guy that's immune to playing against are immune to being lifted for a pinch hitter because they can't hit against a lefty or because he can't hit against a righty, I think that would do wonders for the Detroit Tigers as they look to continue their great start in the American League. They are the first team to 60 wins, I believe, best record in baseball so far. Hats off to Tarek Skubal for an absolutely dominant performance today. And, honestly, it was still an exciting game to watch. Skubal's dominance was, thwarted every bit of the way along the way by the Rangers. Not nearly as dominant, of course, on their side of things, but they kept it to a 1-run game until Skubal had to exit, and then they scored a run on a wild pitch tying it, giving Tarek Skubal a no decision. But ultimately, that offense just still was not able to muster much of anything all game long. Corey Seager had a couple of nice hits against Skubal, but we'll see how the rest of this deadline goes for both of those clubs. Corey, welcome in. Hey, friend, blessings on your day. Thanks for doing what you do. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate you joining us once again. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe down at the bottom of the video. Turn on those alerts. That way you guys are notified when we do go live. We'll be live every single evening through the MLB trade deadline, and on trade deadline day, we'll be live for you guys all day long. So be sure to get your news here as far as everything from the MLB trade deadline. One big bit of news, anyway, is that the Philadelphia Phillies, anyway, have added David Robertson to their bullpen. Basically, it's going to be a prorated version of what a $16 million salary would have looked like in the offseason. Obviously, that number would have been really high for him to get in the offseason, but he was looking for a raise off of what he had done with the Rangers last year, and this does give him that nominal raise. Now, he'll end up getting paid roughly around $6 million, but the whole transaction with the taxes included, the Phillies are going to end up paying close to $13 million on the totality of the deal, but it does give them another guy that they can probably put in there at the 7th, 8th inning role that has some closing experience if they need him to do that. I wouldn't say that the Phillies are done here at the deadline as well. I think Dave Dombrowski just outbid his former team in the Boston Red Sox, who Craig Breslow and another assistant GM from the Red Sox were there at one of the workouts for David Robertson on Saturday, I believe. Dombrowski ultimately was able to outbid him and be able to get him signed to the Philadelphia Phillies anyway. So we'll see how this goes for Philadelphia. This is a roster that's pretty much set in stone this year. They could look for an improvement out there in center field, but I think the long-term answer for them could be in their minor league system in Justin Crawford. Do they want to bring him up and just let him learn on the rookie side of things? When they're in the middle of a pennant race, I doubt it. So maybe they go for more of a veteran guy to help them out in center. That seems to be the one spot in their lineup that they would like to address before the deadline. Welcome in, Hank. You know what they say, no matter what, there's always an upside. Sports Network. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you joining us this evening. That was kind of item number one for the news. Item number two has to deal with an injury. Isaac Paredes, anyway, pulled up lame after a hard-hit ball that was going to go for a double for the Astros. Was running between home and first as he was trying to get to second anyway on a double, but pulled up lame, and looks like he's going to miss a little bit of time. Now, he's had this injury before this season, only cost him a few games, but it looks like this injury looked a little bit more severe. We'll have to see what the updates look like tomorrow, but I would guess an IL stint is coming for Isaac Paredes, and yet another hitter goes down for the Astros. Didn't seem to slow him down today, though. They scored plenty of runs against the Seattle Mariners. But you look at the lineup going forward. Noah Alvarez. Pena's currently out of the lineup. Walker hasn't exactly lived up to the free agent dollars that they gave him. He's going to have to earn his keep now. Altuve showing age. Certainly not exactly a plus defender wherever you're able to horseshoe him in there. Cam Smith is probably the shining light on this team right now. But Paredes going down leaves them very thin on the offensive side of things. Pitching staff's going to really have to carry them here, as that offense I don't think is going to be able to sustain them with the number of injuries that they do have. Sir Centro, welcome in, welcome in. How true are the rumors connecting the Dodgers to a trade for Jared Duran? Jared Duran, you mean? Or are you talking Yohan Duran? Jared Duran, I think those are real. And the other Duran, I would say those are real as well. Mainly because I think they're looking to do anything big. Now, if there's any type of trade talks right now, I think the Dodgers have their hand in literally every single one of them because they have the prospect wherewithal to go out there and do it. Even if it doesn't necessarily make their team better this year, if it's just blocking another team from getting another big asset at the deadline, that might be the reason enough for the Dodgers to do it because they have that kind of money right now. They have that kind of prospect depth. They have that kind of roster to where they can just say, Cubs, you really need an ace? We can outbid you for that ace right now. How about we go ahead and do that, and then you're stuck with whatever you got in your rotation against us in the postseason and the ace you were trying to acquire. How about that? Hey, Mets, you need an ace as well? How about I stop both of you guys from getting an ace because I have better prospects than both of your farm systems? Dodgers can literally do that right now. They have that. I'm not sure if I can say it on the stream or not, but that FU kind of money, like. I don't have to worry about my future costs. I only have to worry about beating you. And that's exactly what they could do here at the deadline. Now, am I saying they will do that? No, but I think the Dodgers are in the unique position that we've never really seen a team be in, this level of prospect depth and a good major league roster, that they could do those types of moves. Dodgers have a lot of age and veterans, yes, but they have the ability to afford those guys and still have one of the best farm systems in the entire game. Jason, welcome in. Heard the Astros are interested in Edward Cabrera. That was a very interesting name that I keep seeing floated around. There's a lot more traction on the Pittsburgh Pirates and Mitch Keller. It sounds like, what's his name? Ben Sherrington, the GM there. It could be on the hot seat there with the manager out of town. Usually the GM is right behind him. So if this deadline does not go well in Pittsburgh, which would mean adding some offensive talent to this great pitching staff that they've got coming and the pipeline of pitchers they have coming behind them, if they don't add some offensive talent here, Ben Sherrington could be out of town before we get to the winter meetings this offseason. As for Cabrera, I think there's any number of teams that are looking at the Mitch Keller market could also be in on Edward Cabrera. Yankees have been mentioned as a fit before. Red Sox, Cubs, Braves, even as a seller team, the Braves are interested in a controllable starter like Cabrera. Would be interested to see what they would be willing to give up in order to do that, because they don't really have much in prospect depth that they could trade away to be able to help solve their needs in the rotation. Sir Centra, what would they have to give in return? We floated a 3-team deal that would send Joe Ryan to the Red Sox, Duran to the Dodgers, and a bevy of prospects from both teams to the Twins. I think that's probably the biggest, machination of a deal you could make for Duran, but they could do a straight-up deal if they wanted to. Now, I think they'd want major league pieces back if you're Boston for Duran, but they would have the prospects, if they wanted to be able to get the deal done straight up. There we go. All right. I believe it's been more than a year since Mariners started a left-handed pitcher. Who could they add at the deadline? Is that a realistic ad? I think their ad is still looking for a left-handed or another bat in that lineup. It sounds like first base is the most likely option. Josh Naylor seems to be the most mentioned name going there. Jim Bowden mentioning as much on Foul Territory's podcast this past week. I would not rule out a first base ad. I also wouldn't rule out a Eugenio Suarez, a reunion there. But he has a stiff market out there. The Cubs are interested. The Yankees are interested. Basically, anybody who needs a power-hitting bat, DH, first base, third base type, Suarez could fill that role wherever you put him. I know he hasn't played first base, but that type of power, however you can horseshoe it in the lineup, is how you do it. He's certainly having a great season. And by the way, nobody's ever been traded with more than 35 home runs hit in a season before he was traded. And this might be the first time we ever see it in Major League Baseball history. Now, of course, 35 is just a number, but that tells you the kind of power that Suarez is having or providing this season. And the Diamondbacks, they had a pretty good weekend, though. I'm not sure that they're going to sell now after they had a pretty productive weekend against a team that was directly in front of them in the wild card race. You can only play the games in front of you. And if the Diamondbacks go out there and have another great week, they could find themselves buying here at the deadline, or at the very least standing pat. I know a lot of teams out there that are looking for assets from them at the deadline. Suarez, Naylor, Gallen, Kelly, and the list goes on. Those would be the names that you'd expect to be traded if they were in a sell position. But if they go on a nice run here this next week, they could ultimately stand pat or even buy around the periphery, maybe a bullpen arm. But the Diamondbacks are going to have a pivotal week this week. Twins, I think, had a very telling series against the Colorado Rockies in Colorado. I understand Joe Ryan pitched great today, but you lose 2 of 3 on the road to Colorado. You're trying to push for an AL wildcard race. There's roughly 6 teams on the bubble for the AL wildcard, according to John Paul Morosi. They did not acquit themselves well in that race. Texas finally got over 500 and are right back to 500 after the loss to the Tigers today. But they have to feel a lot better about themselves than they did, say, 3-4 weeks ago, and their ability to compete in that wild card. Right now, there's the second runner-up, and I think they've got a good head of steam going if they can just get that offense back to going the way it was before the All-Star break. Understandably, coming out of the break can be a little bit of a slow start, and going up against Tarek Skubal, they did not look good. So this next couple of series against 2 teams that they should absolutely clean the floor with, we're talking about the Athletics and the Atlanta Braves. We could really see a nice, run of games here by the Rangers. Say they win 5 of 6 against those teams. If they do that, they could really find themselves in a definite bye situation. In combination with a corner outfielder, Corey, as far as names outside of Naylor and Suarez, other names that kind of fit for them, you're looking at maybe Ramon Laureano, kind of an on-base guy, high average guy this year. OPS, I believe, is over 800 so far for the Baltimore Orioles. We keep hearing Ryan O'Hearn's name out there for the Seattle Mariners as well. Maybe they even do O'Hearn and add a Naylor, put O'Hearn out there in one of the outfield spots. Naylor, I think you'd put O'Hearn out there in right, and then you'd put Naylor at first base. That would be a nice improvement on that offense. And they have the financial flexibility, according to ownership, to go ahead and make the moves that they need at the deadline. So we'll see if they actually hold true to that. So top 2 headlines, Robertson to the Phillies today. And we also saw the Paredes injury for the Astros. Astros are going to have a rough time, I would imagine, over the next couple of weeks without having Paredes in that lineup. Hopefully they get some of their offensive pieces back sooner rather than later. But as we saw, even without Paredes in the lineup, they just seem to find a way. That's the good... that's how you can kind of tell a good team from a bad. You can overcome the deficiencies. You can overcome an injury on a short-term basis. Over 162 games, though, that starts to take its toll on its team. And so if they can weather the storm here in a short period of time, they could still find themselves at the top of the division. I know the Seattle Mariners are, 6 games back in the division right now? 5-6 games. Rangers are around 7 games back, 7.5. They have enough of a lead here to where as long as they tread water anyway, they should be just fine in the AL West. All right, let's get into some trade talk, shall we? I know you guys have been waiting all night for us to get to some trades, so let's go ahead and start making them. Send us your ideas in the chat, and we'll go ahead and see if we can make as many of those trades happen. We'll start with a couple that I was trying to come up with while I was watching the Rangers and Tigers game until we get some in the chat. But Let me pull it up for you guys. We'll start with this first one. Right here. Okay. This first one is mainly for the for the Pirates needing offense. Two guys that are basically out of options for the Rangers and would help the Pirates and at least give them some type of an option offensively in Foscue and Krim. The main reason why you're doing it, though, is the offensive potential of Osuna. He immediately goes into your outfield mix, and you kind of roll from there. Now, is this an overwhelming offer for David Bednar? No. I think you'd probably have to include another piece, possibly a higher value offensive piece than Foscue and Krim combined. Maybe it'd only be a two-player deal, say Osuna and maybe a Fitzgerald. I think could be a nice deal for them. But either way, I think the Rangers, to me, have to have the inside track on Bednar because they've been scouting him for basically 2 years and have had several conversations about a trade involving Bednar. I think they would have the inside track as to what Pittsburgh would be looking for in return for Bednar, as opposed to, say, the Yankees or any of these other teams looking for a reliever or a closer at this time. Sir Centro, is Aaron Boone's job in jeopardy? No. He's done a really good job in New York, and when you look at this team, sure they had a nice team going into the year. Even without Garrett Cole, you figured they'd still be around the wild card picture, and they're a little bit better than that so far. But I don't think Aaron Boone is to be blamed for any of the difficulties that they've had recently. I think a lot of it can be laid at the head of, or laid at the feet anyway, of Brian Cashman and how they've developed that team, how they've gone after the pieces of that roster. I think athleticism, baseball fundamentals was one thing that was brought out by the New York Post reporters again today about how they seem to lack the fundamentals in the game, and it cost them some games. We saw it cost them in Game 1 of their series against the Braves, but they end up taking 2 of 3 and get out and have a nice start to the second half overall. Will Gavin Lux be traded? He will not. He's going to probably stay there in Cincinnati unless they find another team or another more impactful bat for them to bring in, I guess is the best way to put it. Keep lagging out on there. Okay. All right, so that would be one trade. And then I kept thinking about what trades do we always see at the deadline that we haven't been talking about. And that's the team trying to get off of money. I've been trying to shoehorn a bunch of different deals over the last couple of days about teams trying to save money, and it just doesn't make sense for a lot of the teams that I was trying to come up with. And the Atlanta Braves, if they wanted to save some money, Olsen and Riley, I don't think that is overly likely. For instance, the San Diego Padres, I know they're trying to shave off some money this year, but are they really willing to part ways with guys like Manny Machado or any of their other big-ticket items? Probably not. Now, Xander Bogaerts is a different story, but all those guys have a no-trade clause. That's unlikely to happen. So, what are some of the trades that nobody's really talking about? I know we were talking about a Carlos Correa trade a year or so ago anyway with the Minnesota Twins. Now at this deadline, there's nothing on Carlos Correa. I understand he's got the no-trade, or he's got some no-trade protections anyway, but, Minnesota's going nowhere fast. This team is, one injury away to Buxton or Joe Ryan to being a bottom 4 team in the AL and a very winnable American League, and yet they still aren't able to climb the mountain. This is a year where Minnesota absolutely should sell, and they will very likely sell the easy pieces here. We're talking Griffin Jacks, we're talking Yohan Duran. Those pieces should easily be moved. They're expiring deals of Castro, the expiring deal of Bader. Those should easily be shipped out of town. Maybe a middle relief option, Brock Stewart, Topa, Sands, somebody along those lines could also be traded. But when you also look at the bigger names that could be available, Buxton, that's not going to happen. Sounds like he's got the no trade and doesn't want to go anywhere. The team doesn't want him to go anywhere anyway. Pablo Lopez, he's not going to go anywhere due to the injury. In the offseason, I'm sure they will revisit that discussion. Joe Ryan's another one that could be available, but that's going to cost a significant chunk of prospect capital from another team. That's unlikely to happen here at the deadline. Not out of the question, but unlikely. But nobody's really talking about Carlos Correa. His bat is okay this year. Power numbers are down once again, but he's hitting for a solid average, and he's actually posting. He's available. He's not getting injured, etc. I think that would be a very interesting name for a team to buy low on from the Minnesota Twins and get him onto a winning situation. So the trade I came up with, the Rangers are looking for any type or any bat to really shake things up for them. Now this is one iteration of the trade. I came up with a couple others, but the gist of it is Correa, Castro, Duran, and Bader go from the Twins to the Rangers. In exchange, The Rangers basically give up a really good pitching prospect in Cole Drake, who just elevated to AAA. Jose Corniel, who's off to a great start in AA this year after looking like a great pitcher last year. He's finally healthy and starting to throw again. His value is really low right now on the site, but he's only going to go up. I think it's right behind my chair on the screen, but let me scroll up so you can see it here. Corniel, 21 years old. He's at AA and is shoving already. And then Ezekiel Duran goes in and fills the role right now of Carlos Correa at a much cheaper option. And if he hits, great. He's still got 3 years of control. If he doesn't, you part ways with nothing because, again, he doesn't have much value. Dreiling, he's finally starting to hit a little bit better. This over the last 10 days, he's starting to figure it out in the minor leagues. His value is about to start going up as well. So you're getting 3 positive assets. Now, this iteration of the trade, we're including $20 million in cash for Carlos Correa just to kind of even things out, and Ryan Jeffers for Jonah Heim as well. I think there's iterations of this deal where you take out Jeffers, you take out Jonah Heim, decrease the cash on it by, say, 2 or 3, maybe $4 million, and the Rangers still say yes to this deal. But that'd be one trade to get your elite closer. That gets you another bat to your lineup, gets you an improvement over Duran, possibly even your everyday third baseman if Young doesn't come back and produce. And then Bader is now your fifth outfielder behind Haggerty as well. All right, Colton, welcome in. What team do you expect to be the big winner at the trade deadline? The big winner, I think it's going to be the sellers. I think they're going to do really well this year. I think Pittsburgh is uniquely positioned to be able to reap the rewards of a lot of different assets here. And their GM is going to be motivated to try to save his job this offseason. So that's going to be one team. As far as a buyer, I think the Blue Jays are absolutely going to be all in here at the deadline along with the New York Yankees. It's going to be interesting to see who they ultimately add on both squads. Remember, the GM, President of Baseball Ops, are all trying to save their jobs in Toronto. They did a great job getting the Vlad Guerrero Jr. deal done. They've done a nice job bringing in Santander, bringing in Max Scherzer. The work isn't done, though. They need to get to October. Step one, I think they'll get there. The question is, can they win a round? If they win a round, I think they absolutely have secured their job and get a long-term deal and will be there for the next 10 years in Toronto. If they don't get into the postseason, I think they're gone, period. If they just make it into the wild card and get swept or bounce really easily, I think that it'd be up in the air as to whether or not they come back. But if they win around, I think they're just fine, which is why they're going to be all in. So we'll see. They've got some interesting pieces that could be moved at the deadline at the minor league level. Yasevich is a good pitcher. Namala, 18-year-old shortstop, is their best prospect. If they really want to go out for a top-of-the-rotation starter, an ace, there's not a lot of aces out there, but maybe you go after a controllable starter like a Joe Ryan. That would be one option for them. There's a lot of guys out there that they could try to acquire. Chris Sale from the Atlanta Braves, if they decide to move him, would be another name to watch. One last team I'll give you as far as a seller, and that's going to be the Minnesota Twins. They just have so many assets that fit so many needs on several teams out there. You want an elite closer? We got Duran. You want an elite setup guy, best strikeout guy in the bullpen? That's Griffin Jacks. We got him for you. You want middle relief? We have 3-4 guys that fit that description that are having good years on the Minnesota Twins. You want a fourth outfielder? We got Harrison Bader. You need a better defensive center fielder. Harrison Bader again. You need a guy who's a utility player, can play all over their diamond and maybe even start for you if a guy goes down for a long-term injury. We got Willie Castro for you. You want a veteran? You're willing to take on the money? We have Carlos Correa. You want a starting pitcher, an elite starting pitcher, possibly even an ace in most teams? You got Joe Ryan. You want a middling starter? We got Bailey Ober. You want to take an injured guy and hope he shoves for you next season? Pablo Lopez. That one I think is even further down the line though. But you can kind of see how they dot so many I's and cross so many T's for a lot of teams out there. And that's not even including Byron Buxton if they got him to waive his no trade and were willing to move him. They have a lot of assets they could move that would certainly fill a lot of holes on a lot of contending teams. On the National League side, we talked about the Arizona Diamondbacks as well already. I just think that their weekend that they had couldn't have gone better if you're a Diamondbacks fan. And now if you have another great week this week, I think you go into that status on the NL side where you're trying to push for the wild card and see if you can stand pat at the very least, if not maybe add a bullpen arm or two to steady your ship there in Arizona. All right, let's get into a couple other deals. If you guys want to post your trade ideas to me, I would love to see them. One other one that I thought was, if you want to do something risky, you're the Rangers, your offense isn't shoving yet, you're needing to shake up the lineup, You have a really valuable piece that isn't producing for you the way you'd expect yet, and his prospect status probably isn't as high as the site would have you believe, but he's certainly your best piece right now, and that's going to be Wyatt Langford. Now, I've done a couple of Wyatt Langford deals before, but this would be adding a couple of starting pitchers to the Rangers system and getting a controllable starter for their staff right now in Cabrera. Marlins do this because they immediately have a good outfield once again. You remember back to the years where they had Giancarlo Stanton, Marcell Ozuna, Christian Yelich. That was a really good offensive team. Now you're going to have Kyle Stowers, Mayers is starting to shove, and then they got a couple of other minor leaguers that could come up eventually. And then, bringing in Wyatt Langford and his ability, I think it'd be a great boon for that organization. They have tons of pitching, even if they moved all three of these guys in this deal. Now, White is their top prospect. Mayer is their number 5 prospect. Both were drafted in the 23 draft. I think if you included both of them in the deal for Cabrera, the Rangers would have to consider this deal, because then you can turn and flip Cabrera to any of the other teams that we just mentioned that are looking for controllable starters, and you still net 2 decent prospects for your minor league system. Mayer probably becomes your second best prospect in your system behind Walcott. White becomes your second best prospect behind Walcott. Cabrera, say you go to the Atlanta Braves. They need a starting pitcher like nobody's business right now, and Cabrera's under control for 3 more years. I don't think Matt Olson would be the guy to go, just because he's an Atlanta native, those kinds of things. But I think there is a reasonable estimation that you could make a deal centered around Cabrera and maybe a Josh Young in exchange for Austin Riley, and that would at least make the Braves think about it. Before this trade, I don't think the Rangers really have anything besides maybe Kumar Rocker that would make them do that, or a Jack Leiter. And I don't think the Rangers want to trade either one of those guys. Those guys still have plenty of years of control left, whereas Cabrera still has 3 years left, still a controllable asset, but he's not their guy. He wasn't drafted by their team. And so he'd be easier to flip if they were to do this Langford trade and then pivot and send out Cabrera in another deal. Now, of course, you could expand this to a 3-team deal and just make it all square in one deal. But I think if they came up with this offer, if the Marlins came to the Rangers with this offer, that'd be a tough deal to turn down. And Cawley is blocked at the major league level, is starting to show that he's a good hitter at the AA level right now. He could be on the Marlins opening day roster next year as well. That would be a very under-the-radar trade that I could see actually making sense for the Rangers in a, quote, buy and sell move. Sir Centro, who's an under-the-radar player who could be traded and make an impact on a team going forward? Under the radar, I don't think I classify Cabrera as that. So let's see. What could we find? Let's see here. Let me clear this out real quick. An under-the-radar player, Ward for the Angels, I think has had a pretty good power year, but his offensive numbers outside of power are down this year. I think he'd be one piece that I could see moving here at the deadline. His value right now, what is his value? 7.4. That's an under-the-radar piece that I think could easily fit into somebody's outfield mix, give them a little bit of power in the second half, and to help push them over the finish line to getting that wild card spot. That would be one spot I'd see them trying to improve on a number of different teams. The Mets could use him. Mariners obviously looking for an offensive upgrade. The Houston Astros are looking for any and all offensive pieces right now as their injuries have really beset this roster. That would be an interesting piece. But the Angels had a nice weekend as well against the Philadelphia Phillies. They're right in the middle of that AL wildcard race. So I don't think they're ready to sell yet, but I think they will be a team that does sell by the time the deadline does come around in a little under 2 weeks. Another under-the-radar piece anyway. Let's go with a bullpen arm. Under the radar. And to me, I'm going to go to the Guardians because everybody's talking about Clase from the Guardians, but nobody's talking about Cade Smith. He's been just as good as Clase the last 2 or 3 years anyway, and I think he's got a real chance to be even better than Clase when he takes over the closer role in Cleveland. Now, if Cleveland decides to hold on to Clase and Cade Smith gets the better return, then I think Cade Smith would be the guy going out. But I think Cleveland values them very similarly. I do think one of the two will be moved, not both. I think they'd prefer to hold on to Cade Smith because he has another year of control. But he's another under-the-radar name that could be a big impact here at the deadline. Let's go with guys that are like really low value, as far as like we're talking like 10 or less value. Another under-the-radar name. Um, let's go with. Let's go with the Orioles. Everybody wants to talk about Ryan O'Hearn. They want to talk about the starting pitchers. But let's look at the majors roster here, the guys that are on expiring deals. Sir Anthony Dominguez, I think, could be moved to a team needing a middle relief guy. Charlie Morton, I thought until he had that blow up game this past weekend, I thought he'd been an interesting name here at the deadline. Mullins is likely to find himself somewhere. I'd guess Philadelphia makes the most sense as kind of a speed on base guy, and hopefully you can overcome his defensive liabilities in center field. But he would be another impact piece here. Do they have him on here? There he is, Ramon Laureano. Nobody's talking about him, but he just got ejected in the game today because he thought there was three outs in the inning, and so he threw down his helmet after getting struck out. And there was 2 outs in the inning, and of course the umpire took exception to that, tossed him. The manager came out and going, "Look, he just thought it was the 3rd out of the inning, like all guys do. They throw down their helmet after the 3rd out of the inning, and then they just unwrap their wristband and stare up at the monitor and figure out what they need to do, and then get ready to go out for the next inning." Well, the umpire was having none of that. He said, "Yeah, I kind of get it, but at the same time, you can't do that with 2 outs. You can't show me up like that. You're out of here, buddy." And so the manager got tossed as well. But Laureano could be a very nice piece for somebody here at the deadline. In fact, his numbers, let me pull those up. I was looking up Nardi from the Marlins earlier. He's injured still, of course, but he would be an interesting piece in the offseason for somebody to try to acquire. But back to Ramon Laureano. Do they not have him on there? That's weird. Oh, that's 24. 25. Okay. Baltimore. Laureano. There we go. So Ramon Laureano so far this year, 276 hitter, 838 OPS. That's good for top 50 in the sport. That's pretty good for a guy that's 31 years old, kind of bounced around the league the last couple of years. Had that PED suspension a couple of years back anyway. Was seen as a nice piece a few years back with the Oakland A's. Ultimately, they decided to move on from him after some of the issues that he had there. And not saying he's a perfect player, but this year he's certainly having a nice season. 11 home runs this year, 36 RBIs. Not big stolen base guy, but he's going to hit you a nice average. And you look at his numbers recently, he's getting hot as well. He's up to almost 300 hitter over his last 7, hitting about 280 over his last month. And that's pretty much in line with what he's done so far this year. Let's look at his game log just to kind of see how those splits are working. April started off a little slow, obviously, 200 hitter. May, much better, 348. June, he finished with a 312 average so far in July. Dipping back down a little bit, 240. Looks like his last 3 games coming out of the break are part of that reason. But overall, I think the next series will be telling as to where he goes or how high his price is. But it's not going to cost you a whole lot to get him. He would be another under-the-radar piece that somebody could acquire and then still have him for 1 more year after this season. Let's go ahead and do one more under-the-radar player here at the deadline. Let's go with, and this is a player that to me isn't under the radar, but to a lot of the people out there, Yandy Diaz, his value of 5.6, kind of under the radar. He's having a great season, hitting, I believe, 290 right now. And you might be saying, Michael, the Rays are trying to compete for the AL wildcard. Why would they trade him away? Well, same reason they'd be looking to move on from Brennan Loud. Try to get the most assets they can for those 2 pieces and still try to compete and win the wild card. They can eat, or they can walk and chew gum. They've done this kind of thing before. They've done it several times before. John Paul Morosi was even speculating about a Zach Little trade who's on an expiring deal. That one makes a lot more sense because they've been trying to trade him for about 2 years now. Diaz, though, I think the prices for offensive pieces right now are going to be so sky high. I think the Rays might try to take advantage of the market here by putting him out there on the market along with Brendan Lowe and see if they can get a nice return. I think they already have enough pieces on their roster to where they'd be able to slide somebody over there to first base if they needed to. and be able to weather the storm and still be able to make a run at the wild card. I think if they traded away both of those guys, I don't think that would preclude them from getting the wild card. I still think it's highly unlikely that they win the wild card with or without them. I think there are other teams that are in front of them that are going to keep those spots, and teams behind them that will likely jump them. But the Rays have been able to buy and sell at deadlines past. All right, got a few videos coming out for you guys tomorrow. We're going to try to stick to about 2 to 3 videos a day, and then have our lives every single evening around 9 o'clock. So be sure to join us around 9 o'clock tomorrow night for all the latest on the MLB trade deadline. With the All-Star break now in the rearview mirror, we've already seen a few trades come to fruition. All the trade talk, I'm sure, behind the scenes has started to pick up. Teams are starting to figure out which players are going to be available, what prices they have on certain assets. And those prices are going to be very fluid. As we get closer and closer to the deadline, those prices will start to drop just a little bit. Prices are going to be sky high right now, so who's going to be the first team to bite at those prices, get the piece that they really want at the deadline? And then you're going to see kind of the trickle-down effect. Once that team fills their need, takes one team off the market, also takes a player off the market as well. But as we get close to deadline day, then you'll get a lot of middle relievers, fourth outfielder types, utility guys that get moved on deadline day. But I'm hoping we see some more unique trades like the one I mentioned a moment ago to kind of retool a roster. There's very few teams out there that seem to be open to that kind of a thing like there have been in years past. I think the teams that were going to be the team for that kind of a thing are the Twins, the Diamondbacks, the Rangers, and the Braves. But I think probably 2 of those teams end up standing pat, and the other 2 end up not selling as much as they should. So it's going to be an interesting trade deadline. Let us know in the chat which team you guys think will be the biggest seller, which one do you think will be the biggest buyer here. It's going to be a very competitive market, and I'm here for it. I want to see how it's ultimately going to play out. All right, let's head over to X, just see if anything is happening at the moment. Those are the 6 bubble teams that John Paul Morosi was mentioning anyway. Tampa Bay, Texas, LA, Cleveland, Minnesota, and Kansas City. Kansas City, to me, isn't as much of a bubble team here. I think they made the addition of Adam Frazier kind of a nothing acquisition for them. If they got hot out of the break, if they have a nice couple of weeks here, or a week or so until or if they have a nice week, and then they have another week or so or less than a week anyway, to gear up for the trade deadline. Say they go on a 6-1 trip next week. That would be a deadline that they might stand pat or even buy at the deadline. Otherwise, say they go 500, say they go a little under that, then we're talking about Michael Wacha on the market. We're talking about Seth Lugo on the market. Maybe even Bubic could be on the market as kind of a sell high on him kind of a piece. The Twins, we saw how they just performed against Colorado. I get it, it's Colorado, but come on, man, you got to do a little bit better than that. Cleveland, they played good baseball recently. But I don't necessarily think that they buy into the recent run of success that they do have. Angels, same thing. I think they might stand pat along with the Cleveland Guardians. That kind of the top 2 teams there might be the buy/sell type teams. You get the stand pat teams to me in the Angels and the Guardians, and then teams that should sell most likely the Twins and the Royals. Sarah, welcome in. Cardinals should sell some pieces, to be honest, but glad my Yankees bounced back. Absolutely. Yankees were able to pull it out last night and got it done today as well. Let's see here. As far as the Cardinals go, let's kind of see where they are at in the standings right now. Let me update this. Tigers first team to 60 on the NL side. Your Cardinals. They did not have a good weekend. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They lost 3 in a row, of course. They got Colorado coming up in Colorado. If they do what the Twins just did in Colorado, they should at the very least stand pat, not buy. But I would try to sell if I were them. I'd try to sell Helsley. I'd try to see if I could find a taker for Nolan Arenado's deal. I'd see if I could find somebody to take on the money of Sonny Gray, but I doubt they would. He's having, a 4 ERA season. He's got $30 million, $35 million coming due to him next year with a club option the following year for $30 million. And then the Cardinals, to me, need starting pitching. So whatever pieces you do trade away, I would be targeting starting pitching back in return. You get a couple of elite starters in your system that are going to be probably a year or 2 away. I would not trade them for anything right now. Padres, I think, are in a unique spot right now, tied for that, or no, they're in the final wild card spot. They got 4 teams in that wild card because of the tie for the division between the Cubs and Brewers, who had a hell of a weekend anyway. 10-game win streak. They dominated the Dodgers. But the Padres, I think they should be a team that's looking to offload some salary here, kind of retooling their roster a little bit. They got some money coming off the books this offseason, but they're going to have to fill those holes this offseason as well. They don't necessarily have the prospects to do it internally, so they're going to have to do it through free agency, and prices are going to be high. Padres don't have the ability to take on big contracts, so they would probably be a player for some of those controllable starting pitchers. Mitch Keller, Cabrera, Joe Ryan, those types of pieces. I think that they'd be wise to trade away some of their expiring deals and recoup some value. But I think the Padres are another team to keep an eye on here at the deadline for a team that could retool their major league roster as well. Willard, look why is certain pitchers trying to hit Astros batters? Well, I watched that entertaining game on Saturday where the kind of hit batter left and right anyway in that one. But the Astros, let's be honest. There's a couple players who dive over the plate, but at a certain point, Vargas was just wild. Period. I don't think anybody was necessarily trying to hit anybody. Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker both need to be traded. Walker needs a change of scenery. Period. He strikes me as an absolute Kansas City Royal next season. I would not be surprised if they tried to do some type of trade between the two teams there. Nootbaar, I think, would be a nice piece for them to move on from now, but I don't really see a taker at the price that they're probably going to want in return for him. So they're probably going to have to take a little bit of a discount on his deal because he's not having a big year this year. But he certainly does have the potential to be an impactful piece at the deadline. To me, untouchables are Herrera, Burleson, Wynn, Donovan, and Contreras. Donovan, to me, absolutely. Wynn, Burleson, Herrera. Contreras, I think if somebody would take that contract off the books and give me a decent piece back in return, I'd take it. I'd probably hold on to a couple of your younger starters, and then, of course, your minor leaguers I'm not touching. Arenado, to me, you're shoving out the door saying, please accept a deal somewhere. Helsley, to me, I think you try to take the best deal you can at the deadline, and then try to figure out a way to offload a little bit of the money that you've got committed to Gray or any of the other starters that you have next season, and see if you can retool that starting staff in the offseason. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Going to keep it kind of short and sweet on a Sunday evening for you guys. I'm going to make a couple more videos for you guys for the week. But like I said, we're going to have between 2 and 3 videos coming out every single day for you guys. So you have that consistency as far as the information coming out. As we get it, we will pass it along to you. And then we'll have our live every single evening around 9 o'clock. We'll have our afternoon one on Wednesday as well. Our Power Ranking show will be on Wednesday as well. So that'll be our first one since the All-Star break. We'll see how teams have kind of shifted themselves around and made themselves a more competitive team for a playoff spot, or basically announced themselves as a seller. So we'll have a little bit more information when we do our show on Wednesday. But thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us out. Thank you guys so much for interacting in the chat. A few new ones in the chat this evening. Really enjoyed you guys interacting with us. If you guys want to post a trade to us on one of our videos out there, please do so. We'd love to go ahead and hear from you. We'll go ahead and make those trades for you guys in tomorrow's show. We'll also have a couple other interesting news and updates for you guys in tomorrow's show as well. Be sure to check out those videos coming out as well. But thank you guys for joining us. Sub-Zero, welcome in. Yankees need to be busy. Absolutely they do, and I expect they will be. If you check out our video earlier, about, say, 15 minutes ago, we talked a little bit about the Yankees. If you want to check that or that part of the video out. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night.